Hello everybody, today we're going to be opening a new Xcode project, and I'm just going to be doing this a view-based application, and I'm just going to save this as test. So like I was saying, we are going to be doing not really anything. This isn't going to be a tutorial, this is going to be more of a lesson, and if you really want to get into coding, if you really want to get into making iPhone apps like your own way, then what you're going to want to do is actually know what you're doing. Most of these tutorials on YouTube give you source code and tell you how to implement it. They don't really tell you why it works or how. And you know, I'm one of those people. But today I'm going to be telling you some of these file sources, and I'm going to be doing more lessons of these, so if you want, subscribe. Now this is going to be very basic. If you're in Xcode at all, you probably know this. But we're going to be going over some of the major file systems, what each file does, and if you don't know this, well, then hopefully this will help you. So here we've got our .h. Now in the .h, you can basically see right here that there is next to no code that's already been put in or generated by Xcode itself. So in between these two brackets, we can define variables. Now you can do that by typing, for example, I can type UI label, so I can declare this variable as a UI label, and it can only be a UI variable, and we can just name it variable. And then after that, if you didn't know this already, an asterisk defines a variable in the .h, and that is basically what the .h is. It defines variables and it defines IB actions. Now, if you didn't know this already, which you should, a semicolon ends every line. So if there's not a semicolon on that line, then it's not going to end it. So the .h, again, is for defining variables that you can then define, or let's not get into that yet, but what else you can do, like I was talking about, is you can do dash, open parenthesis, IB action, and then what you can do with this IB action is set the IB action to, you can make a button trigger an IB action, you can make an IB action start on launch, and we'll go over that once we get to our .m, which is the next file. So we can just name this go, and then we can end a semicolon after that. Now, with this variable, this IB action we defined, I'm going to hit Command S to save it. We can go into our .m and we can say what that IB action will do. So we can go dash, open parenthesis, IB action, and then we can say go, because that's what we named it. But this time, instead of a semicolon, because you don't want to end it, we want to end an open curly bracket and an end curly bracket. This will define, you know, like what we want. So in there, maybe we want UI label asterisk, because it is the variable. Now notice the things are case sensitive, so if you notice here that it's a lowercase v, so right here it has to be a lowercase v. So if you see here, I just said that this variable will equal hi there, and then we're obviously going to end it with a semicolon. Now it's giving me warnings. Now let's see what this warning is. Now I'm not even sure. Unused variable. Okay, but this obviously isn't going to work. This is just some example code that we can have in IB action. So maybe if this did work, it would say once you press a button or something that it would the text label that we defined variable as, it would display hi there. Now, what file system we're in, I forgot to mention this, is the .m. So the .m, basically what the .m is, it's the code part of the .h, because you can define variables in the .h. Now in the .m, what you can do is say what you want those variables to do. Now that is basically what the .h is. I mean the .m. M is for code, H is for defining variables and whatnot. And another thing is, you've got your view did unload. This is important because once you want your application to close, So, for example, when a user hits a home button, you want to release your variables. Now, when you define a variable, what happens is the iPhone or Xcode or whatever allocates a certain amount of memory. So for each variable you define, or for each object, because that is Objective-C, it purposely allocates a certain amount of memory for that object alone. Now, when you want it to, in your view did unload, so basically when your application is closing, you want it to release those so the iPhone can get its memory back. If it doesn't have enough memory, the iPhone app is going to crash. You don't want that to happen. Now, right here in green, if you didn't notice, once I delete these, it will uncomment it. If it's in green, it's a comment and will not affect code whatsoever. Now that you see that I uncommented it, I deleted those two things. Now it's actual code. Now, in between the view did load, whatever we want in our view did load is what we want to happen as soon as our iPhone application launches. So if you want to play a sound as soon as your iPhone application launches, you'd put a play sound, code to play sound right in your view did load, and it would play sound as soon as you launch the iPhone app. Now that is your .m. There's obviously more things you can do with them, and actually right here I'll show you. We can delete these comments and zoom in. This is the auto rotation. So instead of portrait right here, I can put landscape, and we can choose, here, let me zoom out. We can choose landscape left, or we can choose landscape right. Right is obviously the more used, but I'm not going to change it because, we don't really need to. And then, alright, so let's go down. And these are just the files that I regularly use. I don't really use a delegate. I don't use any of these files right here. So let's go into the .xib. Now the .xib is probably the third most important file because you can actually do without it, but it's so much easier when you do it here. But what we can do is we can actually, from our objects down here, like I was saying, it allocates an object. Each object allocates memory from your iPhone's RAM. Now what we can see here is we can drag in objects. So if we really wanted to, we could drag in an image view, and what you can do up here is if we had any images in our project, we can make it, display an image. Now we don't want those because we didn't define any, but what we did define is a label. So if we click on the files owner, because it owns the files, and then we go up here to the connections tab, we have the Go. Now we can click this and connect it. This button will do the Go action. So whatever we put in Go is whatever we put in Go in the .m is when you press the button, that'll do. So if it's a play sound, it'll play sound. Now, touch up inside and touch up outside. There are other ones. They're kind of weird. I don't really use them. Touch up inside is the most one that'll be used. So when you press a button, it won't go, but when you release the button, it'll go. Whereas touch up outside, no. It might be touch down. When you touch down, it goes as soon as you touch the button, whereas touch up inside, like this right here, is as soon as you touch the button down, it doesn't go, but when you release the button, the action will go. So this is a label. This is just a static text. The user can't change it, but the iPhone itself can. Not really important. Another important file right here is our info.plist. Now the plist, the P in plist stands for property list. So this is properties. It's like I was saying before, you can change it to landscape mode. Well, if you wanted to, here you could add, you could make it do that. Now another important thing in the plist is your icon file. So if we want the icon file on the home screen is the icon. So we need to name that file and see what it is. Now, another thing in the plist is you can do the bundle display name. So if you name your project test like I did, but you actually want it to be named, I don't know, a fax, so like fax, like a fax app, like 1,000 fax or something like that, we can name it fax. And it'll display that on the iPhone home screen as long as this icon right here. And note for icon, it does need to be named icon. So that's that. The plist is basically just settings for your app that only you can change, not the user. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is the frameworks. The frameworks basically allow you to interact with the hardware and other things. They let you do, like, there's a web kit, there's a Twitter kit and stuff. So basically, frameworks are from the outside. They define what code means, and I'm not really going to go much into it because frameworks are just frameworks. You can't really edit them and stuff, but you can bring them into your project and do some cool things with code. Once you get into the really advanced stuff, you actually create your own frameworks. We're not going to get into that, as if you're looking at this, you're probably a beginner. So I hope you learned a lot from this. Not really much to go over in products, but yeah, as we see here, I'm just going to go do a quick overview of what these are. So the .h is where we define our variables and our IB actions. The .m is what we do with the variables and the IB actions. The XIB is interface builder, where we can build our apps and we can say which buttons the IB actions go to. The PList is basically the permanent settings, and the frameworks are things you can drag in that you necessarily don't really need. But for example, when you play a sound, you need the AVA audio player because it interacts with the hardware. Yes, so this is basically a basic overview of Xcode. This shows you what the files do. These are files that I personally use. This is a view-based application. This is generated in Xcode 3, so it might be a little bit different for you, as in folders and stuff. Oh, and one last thing. If you want other files, say if you want a picture in your app, like the icon.png like I was talking about, what you would do is you would put that in your resources folder. This will organize it more, and it's in your app folder. Now, actually, let's do an example of that. Let's see if I have any pictures. I don't see any pictures on the desktop, but when you do drag a picture onto there, it's going to ask you if you want to copy it to your folder. That is the folder you created when you made your app, and if it does go in there, well then you can delete it from the spot. It'll basically copy it into the folder you made when you generated your project, and there'll be two copies of that file. One where you dragged it from, and one in your folder now. But yeah, that's where to put your files. It doesn't have to be pictures, it can be anything. But yeah, this is basically a basic overview of Xcode. Projects generate a little bit differently in Xcode 4. I would recommend downloading Xcode 3 while you still can, because I think the file system is a little bit better. But I think the interface of Xcode 4 is a little bit better, so it's kind of a trade-off. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, I hope that taught you a lot, and there'll be more to come of these, so subscribe if you can, and thanks for watching.